Welcome back to Talk of the Town on 99.7, 1450 WHTC and WHTC.com.
We welcome you back to Talk of the Town for this Monday, May 10th. I'm Gary Stevens. It is the second Monday of the month, which means in our 10:30 segment, we talk about things going on in Lansing with third term State House Representative Mary Whiteford from R-Casco Township. She represents most of Allegan County in the State House. She joins us via the Zoom connection this morning. Mary, good morning and welcome back to Talk of the Town.
Good morning, Gary. Good morning, everybody.
Glad you are with us. And if you have a question for Mary, she'll be happy to answer it at 616-395-1450, 616-395-1450. Some good news, I believe, with some of your efforts in terms of getting more, maybe money and more interest and more concentrated efforts on dealing with the mental health aspect of our state right now. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, so right now we've got quite a bit of federal money coming in, and I have really championed making sure that we make really long-term decisions that have an impact for our grandchildren even. So I've been able to facilitate $219 million of investments. One is to replace the state child psychiatric hospital. It's over in Oakland County. Full replacement. Right now, it's in a building that needs so much work and improvements. Half of it's not being used. We really need to make sure that we have a home-like, state-of-the-art facility for these kiddos. We're also investing $100 million into pediatric bed spaces for psychiatric needs all over the state. It'll be a grant program, public-private partnership working together to do that. There's special considerations that need to go into these types of units, but we want to make sure that it's for kids up to a month's stay. A lot of times kids can't get stabilized in just a few days. We need longer, and it's a huge need. I've helped 3 kids in the past month who are stuck in emergency rooms with no place to go. Also, part of that is $10 million to start having partnerships to establish crisis stabilization units around the state, as well as the more transitional setting for children when they really don't need the intensity and lockdown status of a psychiatric unit, but they're not quite ready to go home. So those are called PRTFs, Psychiatric Residential Treatment Facility. So it's just massive investment. And with the vision that this money isn't in the bank, it's basically borrowing from our grandchildren's future. So let's have that perspective as we're making these decisions. So now we're on the House floor this week, and I will just keep championing it with the Senate and then with the governor's office as well.
How much of has the outbreak really, I want to know, maybe wrong term, accelerated, but how much has the COVID-19 outbreak really heightened these mental health issues? Because I would think they were there. They've always been there. I wouldn't say, maybe always is a bad term, but they've been there. But it seems as if maybe they've become concentrated and even gotten worse because we've been, quote unquote, alone together. The emphasis, unfortunately, on alone.
Right. So anecdotally, I mean, I've heard some preliminary numbers on the rate of suicide has been increasing. That takes about a year to really see firm numbers. But I've heard from parent after parent, just the isolation of COVID and things being shut down and the deep down fear that comes out. I saw once, I think it was about a week ago in the media in Michigan, 80 to 90% of all COVID correspondence is negative and fearsome. And so just this whole state of, like I said, fear, and that causes anxiety and people pointing fingers at each other and, kids having to wear masks. And if they do go to class, they have to be surrounded by plastic. And it's very, very hard for these children. Their parents, their hearts are breaking for their children, just trying to figure out how to help them. And we don't have enough professionals. We don't have enough psychiatric beds. We don't have enough support. That's why this is the time to really tee things up so that we're ready for the future. Bad things happen, but if we're not aware and ready to go, we will never make any traction in this state. And that's all of my emphasis right now.
616-395-1450, 616-395-1450. If you have a question for State Representative Mary Whiteford, she'll be happy to answer it again. 616-395-1450. The budget process, obviously, you're a big part of it, dealing with the parts of the budget that are under your auspices. It's gotten a little bit of, shall we say, it's a little bit under the radar because of the COVID-19 situation. But how are we doing in terms of trying to get a final budget on the governor's desk by the 1st of July?
Yeah, I've been working nonstop since the beginning of January, and this is my third year having the DHHS budget, the Health and Human Services budget, which addresses all of Medicaid, all of the foster kids, senior services, AAAs. It goes on and on to the tune of $28 billion. So what I've done is prioritized in 4 areas. This is the thing. The governor makes a proposal, and she did that in the executive proposal. The House has a proposal based on our priorities, and the Senate has a proposal based on that. We're going to get this out, and then we're all going to get together in something called conference committee, where we're going to figure out where everybody ends up in a good place. You're never going to be happy with everything, and that's the key. But for me, the priorities in this budget were child welfare. Our kids who are abused, neglected, their families, I've got huge investments in that. Also making sure that we have senior services. So seniors who qualify for nursing homes, there's options for them to be taken care of at home. So we've done a massive expansion to be able to allow seniors to age at home if they choose to do that. Another thing is human trafficking. I had a group of people from FBI agents to survivors or victors, the ones who are helping their peers, legislators and the department get together and come up with a plan to have safe housing services for people who come out of the life. There's FBI agents, that's all they do. It is happening, it's pervasive, but it doesn't make headlines as often as it should. So when somebody's rescued, whether it's a girl, a boy, a man, a woman, they need a safe place to go where they're not taken advantage of again, exploited again. And so we found some facilities that have good standards, and we're replicating those. I took from my budget $500,000 as an investment, and I have the word of the department. Debbie over there has been great to work with to get $3 to $5 million of federal money over the next 3 years to start building up this infrastructure to make sure that we have a safe place for people to go when they are rescued. And actually all the child welfare stuff came from my task force, the Adoption and Foster Care Task Force. And we've been having meetings since February, 1 or 2 times a week, meeting with kids who have been in the foster system, to Supreme Court justice, to guardian ad litems, and all the different people in the lives of these children to try to figure out how can we work together and keep the child as a priority so every child has a champion and a forever home.
616-395-1450. Good morning. You're on the line with State Representative Mary Whiteford.
Yeah, hi. Last Friday in the Howland Sentinel, there was a editorial from Amber Marcy from the Disability Network of the Lakeshore, talking about the reduction in reimbursements for caretakers with the no-fault insurance changes. She had stated in there that she had been told by you that that nothing was going to change in her life, her care, based on the changes that were happening. But she thinks that was because you thought she was assuming she was under state control as far as care. What's your plan or solution for the large cuts that are going to happen to the caretakers for people who are injured in car accidents? So I can hang up and listen.
All right. Thank you very much for the call, Mary.
I appreciate it. I've been talking to Amber for the past few years about this issue. And there's, in a very, very complex system, there can be some unintended consequences. And that's the thing I'm working on, is that the people who are getting the 24-hour care, that side part of it was not addressed. And so I'm working on that currently to make sure that Amber has that care she needs. And I thought for sure, as we were going through it, that she had coverage, because the amount of money in that fund was supposed to cover her and other people like her for the rest of their life. I mean, actuarially, it was sound for that purpose, but there's this little nugget, which is her life bread, that was not addressed. So I'm working with my policy team and my my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to address this. And it's July 1st, so it's going to be a fast track trying to work through this.
616-395-1450, 616-395-1450 is the number if you want to chat with State Representative Mary Whiteford. I know this is something that you've been focusing on in Allegan County, especially dealing with the erosion situation. It looks as if there's going to be some help along the way for those who've had issues, have been affected adversely because of the erosion.
Yes, so there is money dedicated. I can't remember the exact amount. For grants for communities to address erosion and, the amount of trees that have been left on the shoreline and clogging drains. So there is money, part of this federal money that we're getting is going to be dedicated to that. So it's an important issue.
Yeah, and we've talked about it before.
Yeah.
And I've talked about it with Jim Story and Dean Camping of the Allegan County Commissioners as well about the fact that we've got to deal with this, and it had been put in the back burner ever since the last 15 months, and technically today is 15 months since Stay Home, Stay Safe was enacted, and the erosion isn't going away. So yeah, we've got to deal with that as well. 616-395-1450. You've been also focusing on some other things involving Allegan County. I know in the Saugatuck area, they're dealing with trying to get everybody on board with a longstanding problem, dredging. Yes, we've had high water levels, so the dredging hasn't been that big of a factor. But now that the water levels are starting to get back into what we normally get, they want to they being in the Saugatuck area want to make sure that boats can be able to get into Kalamazoo Lake and not have to worry about running aground because of the low water level, the high sandbars and stuff like that.
Right. So it's nice seeing the water come down on Lake Michigan, right? And we're not worried quite so much about the erosion. But something that I worked on 4 years ago was why? Why do we have this extra sedimentation? And what I found out is that they called a blowout up in the Rabbit River. So way upstream, there was additional sand coming down and flowing into the basin there. It's basically a basin. So we got together, we had community partners come and have an overall plan for the Kalamazoo River, working with the Outdoor Discovery Center. And now one of the contributors to the PCBs and all the problems with the river from the paper mills has a settlement out there. And we are requesting, as part of that settlement, a way to firm up those blowouts so that they don't happen. But it's a big picture. The other issue that the Saugatuck and Douglas people face is that there are some PCBs in there, and to haul out all that sand is incredibly expensive. And so we're addressing that. I'm going to be having some meetings soon, figuring out where we're at on that, but make sure that this is open, that we're addressing that huge load that we have to find places for, as well as making sure that it's not so bad for our future. Always looking out for our grandkids, right?
That's a very important thing because, and you touched upon a little bit earlier, if we're going to spend money that our grandkids are going to have to pay back, might as well try to, make it an investment so that they're paying back things that are, we're investing in them instead of just paying back because, grandma and grandpa needed money right away. So,
Right.
There is that need.
And we've got a really interesting thing going on too. Not only do we have the over $5 billion coming just to the state of Michigan, our counties, our cities, our villages, and our townships are all getting some funds as well. And so the best scenario is if we're all working together to help the people of our district, of our county. One thing that we've got a really great opportunity is helping with broadband and the expansion of fiber all over the county. And that was another thing. I heard it over and over again when I was knocking on doors back 6 years ago, the huge need for broadband. And I spent 2 years finding out what is the crux of the problem? How can we make it better? Over in Minnesota, they have a grant program. So the state sets aside some money, and then you have public-private partnerships and actually go to the unserved areas of that state. And it was a huge success. Here in Michigan, we were getting federal money, but it was going to the big companies. And they were just increasing what they already had instead of truly going to that last mile, the one that's so expensive to get down to those last few houses down the street, that there's no positive business model to do it. So companies weren't doing it. And they weren't even taking it as an issue with the federal money coming in for the big companies. So I worked really hard, and then through negotiations, I wasn't able to get it signed into law, but we set up a smaller grant program through the governor's office. And I asked my friend, Michelle Hoitinga, she's the chair of the Communication and Technology Committee, a state representative from up north. And I said, hey, I'm going to focus on DHHS and the health things and behavioral health, but can you get this bill through the gates? And she did. So it's the BEAM, Broadband Expansion Act of Michigan. The proposal that we have in the House right now, so that's negotiating with the Senate and the executive, is to set aside, I believe, $150 million, put it into this so we actually can address this finally. So as things move along, if you don't have broadband access, be a squeaky wheel, reach out to your township supervisor, reach out to local companies and say, we need it here. And the more that you guys are squeaky, we get that information out, call my office. I'm going to make sure that that happens too. But we need to get this expansion, and we need to do it as a team. Everything's a team. And then we'll be able to address this, and you guys all know, from healthcare to education to Zooming with your grandma or your great grandma for Mother's Day. It's really important for everybody to have that access in this day and age. And we've got a plan, and years in the making, right? But it all came because I listened to the people of Allegan County, and they told me what was important. The Kalamazoo River, broadband, behavioral health. And so that's always been my top priorities every single day that I'm working as state representative.
You touched upon three of the things that you've been very passionate about and working very hard on with health, with the erosion / the Kalamazoo River stuff, and with broadband. I'm going to ask you a silly question. What's flying under the radar right now? Maybe something you're working on that isn't getting a lot of publicity traction, but is getting some traction in Lansing.
Yeah, so last year I introduced, and I am the lead on a 23 bill package with human trafficking. Our state is at about a B grade, believe it or not, but we had our Human Trafficking Commission get together and make recommendations. They actually made recommendations for 30 different bills. So we focused on 23, totally bipartisan, and it's making traction now. So I had a hearing about a month ago just talking about where we came from, back in 20 years ago when we first started seeing some bills and some statutes regarding human trafficking protections. But for us as a state, moving forward, I presented my bill in the package 2 weeks ago. And what this does is somebody's been exploited, somebody's been trafficked, but during that time when they're under the control of their pimp or whatever you want to call that person, they may have robbed a store. They may have been on drugs and gotten drug charges. So right now they can have prostitution charges removed, but nothing else can be considered. So this woman or man, they can go to the judge and say, hey, these other charges that are on my record, it happened while I was being exploited, and I would like to have them removed. And the judge has the ability to do that with the bill that I have introduced. It's a forgiveness bill. My colleague, Rep. Colley, she's got it for juveniles because it's two different parts of the law, two different laws. So that's the bills that are making traction now. About 15 of those bills actually update the entire law in the term of prostitution, just removes it from all of our statutes and makes it criminal sexual activity. So, but the biggest part I find is the forgiveness side, to give these men and women a second chance at life and success and having a clean record.
I hate to use the term examples, but it seems like that arrest about, I want to say 6 weeks ago in Steve Johnson's district of Wayland sort of brought the issue back to light. It's always been there, but sometimes we need maybe a high profile story to get people's consciousness, make it a front of mind thing instead of just in the back burner.
Exactly. And the people who are exploited, they're not these strong, like my granddaughter Reese. I mean, she's got a loving family. She's very confident, sometimes too confident, right? But But you can have children who aren't in a safe environment, foster kids, kids who don't have a champion, and they can be led astray by somebody who they think cares about them. And that's really how human trafficking happens. Is the average age is 15. So here's a girl, a boy who doesn't have those extra resources in their family, meets somebody online, and there's a lot of online relationships. I just met somebody who's been dating online for a year, going to meet him for the first time next week. But so these kids establish these relationships. Mom and dad, they could be a hot mess, not knowing what's going on, or you might not know what that child's doing, and they get drawn away and they feel like they can go into a loving relationship, and bam, they're just led right into being exploited.
One final thing, Mary Whiteford, I do want to ask you, how can your constituents get a hold of you? Obviously, we're going to put a link to our to your webpage, the state GOP webpage, when we put the description of the podcast on our webpage at WHTC.com. But what about those who might want to need to chat with your staff via the telephone?
Yep. So the number is 517-373-0836. 517-373-0836. Yep. Call. You can talk to Amanda or Adam over there, and we'll try to get things straightened out.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Now, granted, right now, state lawmakers aren't in session. You go back to work tomorrow, I assume. But, those offices are staffed on a regular basis. Nice. So it can, hey, you guys can be able to help out. I'm going to say you guys, your staff can certainly help.
You can leave a message. You can email me, Mary Whiteford at house.mi.gov. And, sometimes we can't solve everything, but at least we'll give it a shot. We'll give it a try.
State Representative Mary Whiteford, I want to thank you very much for joining us today on WHTC's Talk of the Town. Wish you, your family, and everyone well. And if all goes well, let's do this again in the month of June.
Okay. Thank you. God bless you guys.